Did I just find my favorite magazines? Welcome back to the Gear Locker, and today we're going to take a look at 2 new products that I'm going to start using for my impression kits. Now, airsoft guns can be tricky to get clone correct. The magazines are a very easy aspect to mess up, so getting them right is pretty important. And that's why I found these 2 magazines on evite.com. This video is not sponsored by them. The only discount I got was one I found randomly on the internet. So let's dive in to these 2 really cool pieces here. We'll start as early as they go. This is used to replicate the 20-round magazines used by US soldiers in Vietnam. This is brand spanking new right out of the package with a QPQ finish. Quench, polish, quench. Now, historically, I have been a huge fan of the GMP magazines. I hate the Mag brand ones. They're plastic, they're light gray, they look awful, but the GMP brand have a really nice solid metal finish, and they're relatively blued like the receivers. However, as soon as I picked this one up, I think I found a new favorite. The cool thing about these magazines is, while of course, yeah, they're brand new, they're only about $15. And one of the features that they advertise on the website is that these, given that they have the QPQ finish, allows you to really easily sand off and give them a worn look. So you bet that I bought a second one so I can show you a before and after of what these are gonna look like. And before we get to that historic looking mod, let's test out the capacity on these. These are not broken in. In fact, I literally took this out of the package right before I clicked record. So we're gonna make sure that this holds about 80 rounds. Because this isn't broken in yet, I expect some less, but regardless, let's see what we got. And I'm an absolute heathen, so I'm deciding to use a vintage airsoft speed loader for this. Yeah, I mean, one left over because of the nature of these speed loaders, but that fit 80 rounds extremely easily. That's pretty impressive. I'm happy with that. And now we're gonna sand this one down. As you notice, as soon as I take it out of the package, there's quite a bit of oil on here. And my guess is that's to preserve the coating while it's being stored and of course shipped. So let's wipe that off real quick before we get to wearing this thing out. All right, most of the oil's gone, still a bit of a sheen on there, but I'm going to be using a very low grit sanding block. The way I'm gonna do this is only wear in the spots that I think would be relatively realistic to wear in, namely the pieces that will be getting held and some edges, but not really anything too serious. I wanna let these wear in naturally. Of course, I bought 2 because they said it would be easy to refinish, so I'm curious. As you can kind of see on the camera, showing up a little bit. I am getting some streak marks though, and that might be because of the grit I'm using. I don't know exactly what it is, I don't recall, but you can kind of see it's getting some wear in. If you notice, I'm getting a lot of material off, but the finish on it is still doing okay. So let's keep going a little bit more, see what we can do. Not sponsored, but thank D-Wipes because my hands got pretty nasty through that. But I only sanded for a couple minutes, maybe at most. And I did some different patterns. I went up and down, did some circle, wiping it and cleaning off some of the material as we went along. But I can confidently say that something came off. I don't know if it was just the oil and grease or if it was actual material from the magazine to help wear it in a little bit. But I'm gonna show you guys side by side 3 different examples. We have the QPQ magazine untouched, and we have a GMP magazine. Compared to the original look, this is what we've come up with. As you can see, it kind of has the same color. Hasn't really changed, but there are some notable wear spots. Some of my favorite spots are on the lower parts of the magazine. As you can see, it is very standard color here, but there is a little bit of silver showing through on the worn in one. On the other side, we kind of see the same thing. And again, I honestly don't notice too much of a difference, but there is something that came off, so you can kind of count it as worn in. I think the best thing for these is just gonna be natural wear and tear and usual play. But if you wanna get a head start on that, I think maybe sanding some of the coating off might be helpful. If we compare this QPQ magazine to the GMP one, you can see that the GMP, similar to the unfinished one, is a very standard flat color. And this one's been used for quite a while, so I think this may be a more fair comparison. The bluish hue to the GMP is relatively the same, but I think that this one, only after a little bit more sanding, looks a lot more realistic with those silver undertones. So I honestly have to say this gets 5 big boom. I'm just kidding. I might cut that part out. I can confidently say that this is a really nice touch. Let's see how it looks in the gun. All right, so we have my GMP with the Colt trades. Let's take the GMP magazine, fits in nice and solid. Let's take the QPQ magazine unfinished. Also fits in nice and solid. Whoops, that one had BBs in it. And let's take the finished QPQ and note that that fits in really solidly as well. Something I really like about this finished QPQ magazine is how it differs from the body color. If we take a look at the GMP one, you notice that it kind of matches. Of course, you have the GMP receiver with the GMP magazines. They're going to use the same coating or materials. However, this adds just a little bit of diversity into the mix. Also, please excuse that trigger. I'm working on putting a new gearbox and whole system in here, so yeah. Now we're gonna take a look at the 30 round magazines. These are nothing special. They're 150 round metal magazines, and I purchased them for one reason only, and that's nothing that you're gonna see when I'm using it. In fact, 150 rounds, you're not gonna get anything special out of that. It is a decently high round count for a mid-cap magazine, but on the bottom of these, you see Colt AR-15 markings. I am a stickler for details, and when I look down into my mag pouches, I'm definitely not seeing winding wheels, and I don't want to see a blank floor plate. I want to see the Colt marking, and that's exactly why I bought these. If you guys aren't aware, the 30 round magazines showed up in Vietnam. Testing happened around 1967 and 1968, and these made their way into some hands of soldiers, particularly those in Special Forces units like MACV SOG. The CAR-15 XM177E2 especially is very notable for using these magazines and being one of the first. So of course I'm going to use these for my SOG kit, but I'm also going to use these for my 80s and 90s kits that you'll see coming up on this channel soon. I grabbed 7 of them, and no, they don't have any fancy QPQ coating. Really, it's just that. But what I did like about these is that these markings match some of the original styles. The very old Colt ones, particularly those in the 60s and 70s, had this look, except instead of Cal 6mm, they had Cal 223 or Cal 556. I do want to test the capacity on these two, but I want to show you something because I think I've been a little bit spoiled now, having seen the Vietnam style QPQ finished magazines. In an M16 or any high quality airsoft replica with a blued body, these stick out kind of like a sore thumb. However, I do think they're a little bit better than anything cheaper or plasticky that you can find. I do like how they fit relatively solidly. There is very little wobble, at least in my GMP receiver. So overall, it's not too bad looking, but I would like if it had a better finish. Maybe I'll see what I can do to make these look a little bit more worn in. So now I have 150 rounds in front of me, and of course, the vintage speed loader. Let's load these things up. The stated capacity is 150 rounds. I'm very curious to see if it's gonna hit that. As I said with the QPQ VN style magazines, I don't know if it'll hit that because I haven't broken these in, but let's see what we get to. My guess is if these are brand new, we're probably gonna get closer to 145. But again, we'll find out. All right, so what I've noticed is as I was getting to maybe around the 100 mark, these started to get really stiff. Of course, I didn't wear these in or break these in at all, so I'm sure naturally with time that spring is going to wear in a little bit more, but I have about 15 BBs left, and I don't know if I'm comfortable jamming them in here. So I will say I was kind of close with my guess. Maybe you're closer to 135, 140. Still, that's an excellent amount of rounds in a mid-cap magazine, so I'm not too disappointed. This thing does have some serious heft. Unloaded, it's just under half a pound, which is pretty good. So I'm sure a bunch of these fully loaded in your carrier or mag pouches will feel pretty decent. So do I love these? Not really. What I really do like though is that Colt AR-15 stamping on the bottom. And I will be working hard to try to figure out how to make these look as good as the old worn-in magazines of the real ones. So this is the The.Gear.Locker. Hope you guys enjoyed this short overview and kind of look at a couple of magazines that I plan on using in upcoming kits. We'll see you out on the field, in videos, or wherever. I guess in the next one.